I think we're just going to go ahead and get into it because this is already going to be a longish video since I have 77 books to match up and different pairings, so we're just going to go ahead and dive in. Hi everyone, my name is Rose, also known as TA Summers. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a video that I haven't done in quite some time, kind of as a wrap up with respect to all the books that I've read in the year of 2024. I last did this with the books that I read in 2022. The book tag itself is reread, rewrite, or burn. And so essentially I matched up all 77 books that I read in the year of 2024 to be in threes, and essentially I am going to go down the list and choose which books I would reread, rewrite, or burn. So that's the simple explanation for it. I did kind of like a randomized set for each of the books that I read for this, so this is a completely random matchup. Just gonna go ahead and dive in, see all of these different matchups, and I'm gonna make my choices carefully, agonizingly, some kind of way. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. So this is a total of, I believe I'm looking at this correctly, this is a total of 26 rounds. There may be one book that I can save because it didn't match up, like not all of the matchups had contained 3 because it wasn't divisible by 3. I did 77 reads total in the year of 2024. So there's one matchup that only has 2, which means if I have a matchup of 3, I can either choose reread or rewrite, and then what I don't choose will end up being the choices that I have for the last 2. So that's kind of my wild card of flexibility with these matches. But I think most of these I'm probably just gonna play it clear cut. It's agonizing enough in terms of like what I'm already seeing in terms of the matchups right now. So let's go ahead and dive in. 3 books, and I'll put the covers up here for your reference in terms of each of the matchups here. So you'll be able to see the titles and the authors in terms of what's matching up. Same format as the 2022 one. So the first matchup, Homecoming Season by Aubrey Penn, The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and Forever by Judy Blume. That is quite a matchup in terms of things. So which would I reread, which would I rewrite, and which one would I burn? So based on these 3, Reread would definitely be The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I think that was one of my favorite nonfiction reads for this respective year in 2020. So I would say definitely reread for The Message. Forever by Judy Blume, that was the first time that I read it in quite some time. Yeah, I would probably rewrite Forever, like at least in some respects, to kind of like update the references and probably provide a little bit more in terms of clarification with respect to the relationship in that respective novel, kind of just like clarification. And then Homecoming Season was not one of my favorite reads of 2024 in terms of things. There were certain things that I had issues with respect to the novella, so I would say that's the one to burn in this. Round 2, going right into it. Stiff by Stephanie Nicole Norris, This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan, and Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. This one is actually pretty easy for me, so I would say This Could Be Us would definitely be a reread. It was one of my favorite romance reads of 2024, and I was very, very glad to be able to read it and pick it up. Stiff by Stephanie Nicole Norris, I would say that would probably be my rewrite, because as much as I liked that respective book, and I do need to give it a proper review on the channel, I think there were certain things where I probably would have tightened it up if it were for me, which leaves Thornhedge, which unfortunately disappointed me in a sense. I liked parts of it, but I didn't like it as much as the first 2 books. So Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher would be the one that I burn in this respective situation. Sorry, Thornhedge. Yeah, you're the weakest link in this particular matchup. Round 3, let's go. 24 Seconds From Now, A Love Story by Jason Reynolds. Oh, yes. The 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hildebrand. And The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. Okay. So, out of these, that's a hard one. Because I definitely love different aspects of each of these respective novels. I would say the one that I would reread would be The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. That was very well done. I read it in the audiobook version. That was one of my favorite audio reads of 2024. So definitely that would be a reread. Rewrite 24 Seconds From Now, A Love Story. I'm sad to say, like, in terms of things, the only thing about that, like, because the thing about it is I love 24 Seconds From Now, A Love Story. The one critique that I had was that the ending was a little bit abrupt, so I probably would have kind of like a 24 seconds, 24 hours from now, like 24 days from now, something like that, to showcase kind of like a follow-up in terms of that respective story. Which means the 5-Star Weekend, and it's not that I didn't like the 5-Star Weekend. I like aspects of the 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hildebrand, but that's the unfortunate one that is the one to burn in this matchup. So I did genuinely like that story, though. In terms of things, I gave it I think 3.5 out of 5 stars. Whereas with 24 Seconds From Now, Love Story, I gave that 4 stars, and then The Crossover I gave 5 stars. So you can kind of see my reasoning there, like in terms of the ratings for each book. Matchup number 4, let's go. The Bully by Devney Perry. I think in some versions of the novel it was credited to Will and Nash, but I'll say Devney Perry. It's the same author. Blood at the Root by Ladarian Williams. And Breaking the Bully by Jessica Kane. Okay, so Breaking the Bully was one of my worst reads of 2024, so that is definitely going in the burn category. I would say Blood at the Root would be a reread. I definitely enjoyed that the most out of this respective matchup. I gave it a strong 4 stars, and it was one of my favorite audiobook reads of 2024. And so, which means The Bully by Devney Perry. That was a bully romance that semi-worked for me, but I still only gave it 2 stars because it did disappoint me in terms of the way that it chose to do things. So that would be a rewrite for me. Fairly straightforward so far. All right, round number 5. Let's go. That One Night by Emily Rath. That is the prequel novella to Pucking Around, for anyone who wants to know. The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. And They Came for the Schools by Mike Hixenbaugh. That's a wild matchup. So this one is pretty easy for me too. They Came for the Schools by Mike Hixenbaugh. That was one of my favorite nonfiction adult reads for 2024. I really appreciated that compilation of the events that were chronicled in the NBC News podcast. South Lake, that's the name of the NBC News podcast that is the basis for They Came for the Schools, and it just it talks about the events of South Lake, Texas, in terms of the book banning crisis, among other things. And I really found that particular nonfiction book to be very informative, and I'm glad that I was able to get a galley copy and read it in 2024. So I would say that's definitely a reread for me. That One Night by Emily Rath. I'm going back and forth between That One Night by Emily Rath and The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. I liked The Boyfriend more from Frida McFadden than The Teacher. So I would say, like, for The Boyfriend, since it had some pretty interesting twists and events that happened within it, I would say that would probably be my rewrite. If it had some tweaks, I think it would have been pretty interesting in terms of the overarching mystery and thriller aspects of that. Which means That One Night, unfortunately, is on the burn list, unfortunately. not warm, and not like in terms of that being like having to do with sports romance and hockey and stuff like that. I think it'll be fine. Round number 6, let's go. Fall by Michaela Box. Shoe which is the third book in the Them Boys series by Alexandra House, and The Trouble with Love by Christina C. Jones. Okay, this is a fairly easy matchup for me as well. The Trouble with Love by Christina C. Jones, it would definitely be a reread because I really enjoyed that adult Black romance. It was really wonderful to be able to follow the twin sisters and their respective relationships in that respective book. I would say rewrite probably for Shu, which is the third book in the Them Boys series. There were aspects of Shu that I liked, but I think the sequencing and the progression of that probably would have prompted me to put that in the rewrite category, which means Fall, which it was one of my worst reads of 2024, is definitely in the burnt category. So that was fairly straightforward. Round number 7. Let's go ahead and go. How to Write a Poem by Kwame Alexander, Lessons from a Younger Lover by Zuri Day, and Miles Morales Volume 3 by Various. So this one was hard. Let's see. I would say reread definitely How to Write a Poem. That was a very cute picture book by Kwame Alexander. I really enjoyed that. Thought it was creative. Miles Morales Volume 3 had some events that didn't really sit well with me, so I would say rewrite for that, which means Lessons from a Younger Lover is unfortunately in the burn category. There were things about Lessons from a Younger Lover that I didn't like as much. It was kind of like the middle of the road for me. I gave it 3 stars overall, and you can see my review of that on the channel as well in terms of what issues I had with it. But yeah, fairly straightforward in terms of that round. Round number 8. Let's go. Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Adore, Bully by Penelope Douglas, and The Night of the Wedding by Jay Brosen. That one is hard. Like, it's easy for me to say which one would burn and which would be Bully by Penelope Douglas, so let's go ahead and get that out of the way. I really liked The Night of the Wedding, and I liked aspects of Cloud Cuckoo Land. I would probably say The Night of the Wedding is probably the one that I would reread among all of these. I need to give that a proper review on the channel. I did really enjoy that respective book, which means Cloud Cuckoo Land is the one that I would rewrite. I would probably rewrite to streamline it better, but I still like the overarching narrative for Cloud Cuckoo Land. So not much to add on that. Round number 9. Justice for Some by Nora Ericott, Coming Up for Air by Tom Daly, and You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. Okay, so You Should Have Come Here is not even in the same league as the other two, so that is definitely the one to burn. It was entertaining, but it was not, there were aspects that I had issues with in terms of that. At least it was entertaining, though, but it's the one to burn in this respective thing, which means I would say Justice for Some by Nora Ericott, as pivotal as that is to looking at the progression of time in terms of legalese for Palestinian rights and things like that. I would say that's definitely a reread and definitely a must read for people in terms of things. I did find a lot of value in reading that in 2024, which means Coming Up for Air by Tom Daly. I would say that would be in the rewrite, if only to kind of like make it a little bit more chronological. But Tom Daly's respective memoir was very informative, and I appreciated a lot of what he had to say in that memoir in terms of things. It was one of my favorite nonfiction reads, and I think it might have been one of only a few memoirs that I read in 2024. So that's fairly straightforward. Round number 10, Ja, number 2 in the Them Boys series by Alexandra House, Bad Like Us by Gabrielle Lepore, and The 100 Years' War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi. So this is fairly straightforward as well. So The 100 Years' War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi is a must read for how informative it was, and so I would put that in the reread category. Ja is probably my favorite of the respective novella series by Alexandra House and the Them Boys series. So I would say tweak a few things that would make it in the rewrite category, which means Bad Like Us, unfortunately, is in the burn category. And I had noted that Bad Like Us was one of the more disappointing reads that I had in 2024. I think it could have been better if it had been streamlined and had not had as much head hopping and time jumping as it did for a YA novel. I really appreciated some aspects of it, but unfortunately it did disappoint me. So that's fairly straightforward. Round number 11, let's go ahead and go. That Librarian by Amanda Jones, Tales to Keep You Up at Night by Dan Pawlowski, and Miles Morales Volume 1 by Various. I really enjoyed Miles Morales, The Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 by Various, so that's definitely in the reread category. We are not burning that librarian. I would say probably a few tweaks for that librarian, even though I really enjoyed that memoir from librarian Amanda Jones, where she chronicles her fight in terms of defending banned books. In terms of things, maybe it could have been streamlined a little better, but I really liked that respective memoir as well in terms of things. That's hard. That's hard in terms of these matchups, which means Tales to Keep You Up at Night by Dan Pawlowski is on the burn list, but here's what I'll say. Since that centers around a cursed book in terms of where the main character of that respective book is reading through scary stories and has to find a way to be able to get rid of it because it's cursed, I think burning it would be okay. I think burning it would be okay. I'll leave it at that. All right, round number 12. Bully I Hate by Gabrielle Mello, Pucking Around by Emily Rath, and Call and Response by Christina C. Jones, which is the third book in the New Heights novella series. This one is easy. This one is very easy. Call and Response by Christina C. Jones was one of my favorites from the New Heights series, so definitely rereading that. Bully I Hate was one of the worst books that I read in 2024. My worst reads of 2024 video should be already up by the time that this video goes up, but you'll see the reason why if you watch that respective video, which I'll link in the cards above in the description down below. But Bully I Hate, definitely burning. And then Pucking Around, I had given a full review of that on the channel as well. It was also a part of my worst reads list in terms of things, but I think a good rewrite probably would have made that a better book. So yeah, putting it in the rewrite category feels apt in terms of things. I would have shaved that down by about 450 pages at the very least. But yeah. All right, round number 13. Miles Morales Suspended by Jason Reynolds, The Summer We Fell by Elizabeth O'Rourke, and Tempted by the Bollywood Star by Sophia Singh Sasan. Okay, so I haven't talked about the fact that I read Tempted by the Bollywood Star in 2024. That was one that I forgot to mark as being read earlier in the year, so I need to give it a proper review on the channel and give my thoughts about it. But for this respective matchup, this is fairly easy in terms of what my choices are for this. Miles Morales Suspended, I absolutely love, so that's definitely a reread in this matchup. I would say Tempted by the Bollywood Star was somewhat disappointing, that would be a rewrite. It had elements that I liked in it, but unfortunately it didn't measure up to what I thought it was going to be, so that would be a rewrite, which means The Summer We Fell is definitely in the burn category, and I had a lot of thoughts about The Summer We Fell in terms of things. You can check out my review of that on the channel as well. Moving on to round number 14. The Cursed Moon by Angela Cervantes, Unraveled by J.C. Burton, and If She Says Yes by Tasha L. Harrison. So out of these, this one is hard because essentially you have two adult romances matched up with a middle grade book, which that's not exactly fair to The Cursed Moon, which I really enjoyed in terms of things. So I would say, what am I going to say for this one? I enjoyed The Cursed Moon, so I'm going to say that's a reread. That's a reread for me. There were aspects of Unraveled I didn't particularly care for. That's probably going to go in the burn category, even though I liked it, and I liked J.C. Burton's writing. That wasn't one of J.C. Burton's stronger offerings for me, so that would be in the burn category, which means If She Says Yes by Tasha L. Harrison would be the rewrite, but it wouldn't take much rewriting because I actually did really enjoy that age gap romance. In terms of the interracial romance and the aspects of that, it were really steamy, really interesting in terms of things. I enjoyed myself in terms of reading that, and I gave a review on the channel for it. So I feel pretty good about those choices for this matchup. All right, round number 15. Let's go ahead and go. The Brood by Devney Perry, Forced Perspective by Christina C. Jones, which is the first book in the New Heights novella trilogy, and Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. Okay, so essentially we have two adult romances with a YA fantasy romance. So, what to say? I really enjoyed Forced Perspective, so for me, I think that would be the reread for me among this one. Cinderella is Dead was an interesting YA fantasy retelling of Cinderella. I liked aspects of it. The Brood by Devney Perry was interesting in terms of a forced proximity romance, but I need to give a proper review of that because I forgot to mark that, but I will probably post a review of that on the channel at some point. I just forgot to mark it for 2024. But I would say among these, for Cinderella is Dead, I'll probably say rewrite, because I think there were aspects of that I think where the characters could have had even greater chemistry in terms of things and being able to see more of the world in terms of things. I would say that's probably the rewrite, which means The Brood by Devney Perry unfortunately is the one to burn. Even though I did like aspects of The Brood, I'll give a full review on the channel in terms of things and give my thoughts about it, but I feel pretty good about those choices for this particular round. Round number 16, let's go. Wild Faith by Talia Levin, Tender Beast by Lizelle Samberry, and Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Denman. Oh, that's hard. And what a mashup. Oh, my word. Seriously, though. So what would I do with this one? Okay, so Tender Beast I would say reread because that was a very interesting YA horror that had my attention. I think the only flaw with that was that it may have meandered a little too long. It probably could have been cut down, but I liked it enough to be able to enjoy that respective read. I think I gave that a strong 4 out of 5 stars for the YA horror aspect. It was one of my favorite YA horror. The only YA horror I think I read for 2024, if I remember correctly, but it was one of my favorite titles of 2024 in terms of things. Which means Wild Faith by Talia Levin, I thought that was a very valuable read. I think it could have been streamlined a little bit better in terms of presenting the information that it did, and even providing even more stories from people that probably would have put it a little higher for me. And I give it a strong 4 stars, and it definitely was an impactful read. I learned a lot from it, but I would say that would be in the rewrite category, which means Dungeon Crawler Carl would be in the burnt category. I think Carl can handle a little bit of hot water. Maybe Donut can fish him out. He'll be fine. He'll be absolutely fine. I did like Dungeon Crawler Carl in terms of the audiobook for that. I do think that I felt the weight of the narrative saga bit because it basically feels like a game in terms of the reading of the novel, in terms of where they're meandering and going through different adventures and things like that in terms of the narrative, which I think could have been streamlined a little bit better, but I think Carl will be fine. All right, round number 17. Let's go ahead and go. The Coward by Stephen Aryan, Ready for Love by D. Rose, and Sweet Honesty by Joan Vassar. Oh, that is hard. Oh boy. Okay. So, The Coward was one of my favorite reads for 2024 in terms of fantasy. I finally finished that this year. I loved it. I gave it, I think, either 4.5 or 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. So I would say that would probably be the reread for me. I also really enjoyed Ready for Love by D. Rose. Sweet Honesty, I enjoyed that as a historical male black romance by Joan Vassar. That I think that was the first book by Joan Vassar that I read. Very, very steamy. Very steamy without saying much, but that's hard. I might be willing to use one of my lifelines to save one of these books. So okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and mark it in terms of saving one of these. So Ready for Love, I would probably be rewriting, but I really enjoyed that respective novella. It was a very short read. It was part of a series, and I'm planning on doing a review for that since that was one of my December reads. Sweet Honesty, I had forgotten to mark, and I had read it earlier in 2024. I'm going to say that is going to be a reread for me. So putting a pin in it in terms of things, which means in the final round, I can only choose from rewrite or burn. So putting a pin in it. So we'll say that Sweet Honesty is a reread also. So marking it for this. Round number 18, A Certain October by Angela Johnson, The Seven Devils by Sarah Danvers, and How to Lose a Best Friend by Jordan K. Castlemar. Okay. This one is pretty easy for me. How to Lose a Best Friend by Jordan K. Castlemar, I think, was a very underrated YA contemporary in terms of the way that it deals with respect to the main characters' relationships in terms of things. And I really enjoyed it, and I gave a full review on the channel. I give it a strong 4 stars, so that will be the one that I choose to reread. I did not like The Seven Devils by Sarah Danvers. That was a you can kind of call it a bully romance. It was new adult. I thought that it was a Kindle download that I got for free, and I got it years ago, and I finally had a chance to read it in 2024. It was going to make my worst reads of 2024 video, but I could only fit 7 titles in, so that just barely missed it. So that will be the one to burn, and I'll have a review of that on the channel as a part of a separate video. Which means A Certain October by Angela Johnson. I had talked about this on the channel. I thought it was a very solid read, and a very quick read for YA in terms of dealing with a difficult subject matter, and also being told in a very interesting way in terms of things, but I think that there were certain flaws that it had, so I would say that, and it was a reread for me, so I would say that would be the one that I would rewrite, because I think it could have focused on aspects of the main character grappling with the aftermath of the train disaster, and also caring for their autistic brother. I think there were aspects of that could have been improved. So that A Certain October by Angela Johnson would probably be under rewrite. So I feel pretty confident about that. Round number 19, Desperate Measures by Katie Robert, The Corner of Olive and Oak by Aubrey Prin, and The Voting Book by Brandy Colbert. Okay. So Desperate Measures would probably be the one to burn, because that was among my most disappointing reads of 2024. The Voting Book I really enjoyed as a YA rom-com. I thought that it was very, very cute in many moments. The fact that the cat in that was named Eartha Kitty gives it bonus points in terms of things. I thought it was incredibly sweet, and and also very heartfelt in terms of a lot of things that happen in that respective novel. So I would say that would be the one to reread for me, which means The Corner of Olive and Oak by Aubrey Prehn. I like that a lot more than Homecoming Season. So like that actually did work for me. That would be under the rewrite category. I probably would have rewrote it just to make it a little bit longer, so to spend some more time with the characters in terms of things. It wouldn't take much rewriting at all in terms of things. I enjoyed it for what it offered, and I'm looking forward to reading more from the author as well. Round number 20, Split Decision by Christina C. Jones, which is the second book in the New Heights novella series. The Teacher by Frida McFadden, and When I Was the Greatest by Jason Reynolds. Okay, so this one was easy for me to choose. When I Was the Greatest by Jason Reynolds was one of my favorite reads of 2024. It was a reread, technically speaking, for me. I finished it out. I loved it. I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars, I believe. I loved the friendship between the boys and being able to see an eye to their respective lives. And it gave a very realistic portrayal of Tourette's syndrome. I thought it was very well done, so that would be the one that I would reread. Split Decision by Christina C. Jones, I put that as one of the more disappointing reads of 2024 for me, so that would be the one to rewrite. I would rewrite aspects of that, definitely, and I think it definitely could be improved. And The Teacher by Frida McFadden was one of my worst reads in 2024, so that is the one to burn. Long story short, I was so frustrated by The Teacher for so many aspects that didn't make sense. And I talk about it in my worst reads video in terms of things, but yeah, I feel pretty confident about that matchup. Number 21, Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 2 by Various. Set, which is the first book, novella book in Alexandria's House's series, Them Boys. And Jaden Powers and the Inheritance Magic by Jamal J. Perry. Okay, this is quite the matchup in terms of things, because you have one adult title and then one comic and then one middle grade novel. So let's look at this. I liked Jaden Powers and the Inheritance Magic, so I would say that would be the one to reread. Miles Morales Volume 2, I would rewrite only because of certain events that happen in it that are heartbreaking. I would rewrite definitely some of the events that happen in that, even though I really enjoyed being able to read Miles' story in terms of that. I really loved that compilation in terms of things. Which means Set, unfortunately, is the one to burn in this one. Burning Hot Passion. That book was very steamy in terms of things. I thought it was fine. I did enjoy the Them Boys series for what it offered in terms of the overarching narrative experience, but it does deal with a lot of trauma and untriggering subjects. And the very first book, there were definitely aspects of it that I didn't care for in terms of things that weren't my cup of tea, but I still appreciate the read for what it offered. Okay, coming into the last round, so let's go ahead and jump in. So round number 22, Ghost by Jason Reynolds, Faded Blades by Alona Andrews, and Ban This Book by Alan Gratz. Okay, so for this one, I think this one is pretty straightforward for me too. So I would say that overall, I loved Faded Blades by Alona Andrews. I loved Ghost by Jason Reynolds. That is a middle grade series which focuses on a track runner by the same name. He's a pretty fun character to follow. The only book in this that I really didn't care for was Ban This Book by Alan Gratz. I think it could have been better. There were aspects of it that I liked, but there were several aspects about it that I didn't like, and I'll talk about that more on the channel in terms of my review because I read it in December. But I would say Ban This Book by Alan Gratz would be the one to burn, unfortunately, even though there are much better books that talk about book banning than Ban This Book, and I'll explain that later on in terms of things. But which means the decision has to be between Ghost and Faded Blades here in terms of reread or rewrite. Whew, boy. Because I love both of these for different reasons. I would say Ghost would be a reread. Wonderful middle grade novel. I very much enjoyed it. Faded Blades, I would only rewrite just to make it longer and spend more time with the characters. I love this respective sci-fi fantasy romance. Like, the chemistry between the characters was amazing. It's very much standard in terms of like Alona Andrews' work overall. And it was a great follow-up to the Kinsman universe series. It's the third book in the Kinsman universe trilogy in terms of things, and it was done very, very well. One of my favorite reads of 2024. But yeah, that would be the one to rewrite, just to be able to spend more time with the characters and spend more time in the world. That's what I'll say about it. Moving on, round number 23, Brown Sugar by D. Rose, Four Found Dead by Natalie D. Richards, and Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. Since Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams was one of my favorite reads of 2024, wonderful black romance in terms of chronicling an aspect of the Harlem Renaissance and the way that they chose to do the romance in that respective thing. I had some issues with some of the progression of events, but it was among one of my favorite reads of 2024. So I would say Love Song for Ricky Wilde would be the one that I reread. The one that I would rewrite, Brown Sugar by D. Rose. I really enjoyed that respective short read. It's part of a novella series, which I'll talk about in my December wrap up. But I really enjoyed that. I would only just rewrite it just to be able to spend more time with the characters. That's what I'll say about it in terms of things. Which means Four Found Dead, which I listed as one of my more disappointing reads of 2024, would be the one that I burn in this one. So, fairly straightforward. Round number 24. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, Daryl by various authors, and How to Read a Book by Kwame Alexander. Okay, this is hard. So, yeah, this is hard. So I would say reread Between the World and Me. That was a wonderful reread from Ta-Nehisi Coates. I really appreciated being able to read Daryl, which is the book and a movie that I did earlier in 2024. That was a reread and classified as a vintage young adult, which was really fun to be able to do. I really enjoyed that video. So I would put that as rewrite, probably just to spend more time with the characters and develop them more in terms of things. And like that would probably be the way that I would say that, which means, unfortunately, How to Read a Book by Kwame Alexander would be on the burn list for this one, but I really enjoyed that, and it stings that it was the odd one out, even though it's a children's picture book. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem fair. But yeah, that's one of the more painful ones in terms of the choices for me. But I liked aspects of all three of these books. I hate the fact that one had to be the odd one out in this one. Round number 25. The Way I Am Now by Amber Smith. All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. And This Book Won't Burn by Samira Ahmed. Okay. This Book Won't Burn was one of my favorite reads of 2024. I gave that full 5 stars. I loved it. I think it was one of the best YA stories that talk about book banning in a way that really highlights the reality of it and the protagonist's efforts to push against it at her local high school, even though she's facing so many challenges on her own. Nora was a compelling protagonist. I loved her so much. So that would definitely be the one that I would reread. I loved All Boys Aren't Blue as well, even though that was a very hard book to read through. I would say that I would rewrite it, probably just to tweak certain things in terms of streamlining things, but otherwise it was a solid YA read, and I really respected it for what it offered, which means talking about this the way I am now, I talked about this as being not one of my favorite reads of 2024 in terms of Amber Smith's follow-up to The Way I Used to Be. So The Way I Am Now would be the one that I burn in this respective matchup, which I think that's fairly straightforward in terms of things. And then the last one. So since this, I used my wild card spot in terms of the reread, so these last two I can only choose between rewrite or burn. So the last two books would be New Kid by Jerry Craft and It Waits in the Forest by Sarah Doss. So I would say rewrite for New Kid for Jerry Craft, only just to make it longer. It was a wonderful graphic novel read. I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I thought it was very well done. I still need to give a proper review of it because I forgot that I read it in 2024 and I didn't mark it on my Goodreads until the last minute in terms of my reads. So like that will have a proper review coming on the channel as soon as I can get it up in terms of things, which means I listed It Waits in the Forest by Sarah Doss as one of my most disappointing reads of 2024. It is unfortunately the one that is on the chopping block for this matchup. So that's rounding things out. I will talk about It Waits in the Forest in more detail in a video on the channel, as I mentioned before. But I liked aspects of it, but I think a lot of aspects about it could have been better in terms of things. So that is it for my reread, rewrite, burn tag challenge for the year of 2024. I chronicled all 77 books that I read in the respective previous year, and I feel pretty good about that. The matchups weren't some of them were very painful, but not as painful as the one that I did in 2022. I was silently kicking myself in terms of all the hard matchups that I had in 2022, but this one I felt pretty good about in terms of things. And I'm looking forward to doing more of these types of tags and fun things, chronicling what I'm reading and what my thoughts are in videos to come. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be informed of when I post new videos. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next video.